There comes a point in your life when you realize that true wealth has nothing to do with just money and everything to do with alignment. When I was 24, I met a man who changed my entire perception of success. He wasn't flashy, he didn't wear a gold watch or drive a luxury car. He wore a simple shirt, old boots, and had a laugh that filled the room. But the moment you sat with him, you felt something rare: peace. He had built 3 businesses, traveled to more countries than I could name, and had a family that adored him. I asked him one day, "How did you do all this? What's the secret to being rich and actually enjoying it?" He smiled and said, "Most people chase wealth to escape misery, but I chase clarity first. Wealth followed." That conversation shifted something in me, because we're taught from a young age that happiness and money are found at the end of some long, exhausting tunnel. Study hard, work harder, sacrifice everything. One day maybe you'll have both, but what if that tunnel was a trap? What if the people who look the most successful on the outside are the ones breaking the most on the inside? And what if the real game wasn't to win more, but to live better, earlier, with freedom baked into the process? That's what most people never realize. The goal is not just riches. The goal is to be rich and peaceful, rich and well-rested, rich and deeply happy with yourself. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you have to stop chasing in circles. The man I met taught me that money is a tool, not a trophy. If you're miserable before you earn it, you'll be miserable after. Because what you truly want is not cash, it's what cash gives you. Freedom, options, experiences, space, peace of mind, and those things can be built before your bank account explodes if you learn how to align your life with what really matters. That means your habits must reflect your priorities. It means your work cannot be driven by anxiety and comparison, but by purpose and design. There are people with millions who can't sleep at night. There are others with modest income who live like royalty, not because of what they own, but because of how they think, who they love, and how they spend their time. The game has never been just about money. It's about freedom and joy. And the first step is understanding this. Wealth without purpose is just stress with a prettier mask. The second step, building a lifestyle that earns income without draining your soul. That begins with decisions most people avoid. Saying no to hustle culture, setting boundaries, protecting your time like gold, and creating work that feels like an extension of who you are, not a prison sentence dressed up in productivity. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you have to stop trading your peace for potential. You have to let go of the idea that burnout is proof you're working hard. Real success is quiet, sustainable, and built on alignment. You shouldn't hate Mondays. You shouldn't live for weekends. You shouldn't measure your value by your to-do list. The man I met never once bragged about how busy he was. He bragged about how many breakfasts he had with his kids, how often he walked barefoot in the garden, how rarely he rushed. And yet, he had built more than people who never paused. True wealth is the freedom to be present. It's the ability to create without pressure, give without fear, and live without constant urgency. If that's what you want, and I believe deep down it is, then it's time to rebuild your definition of success. Not one based on someone else's highlight reel, but one built on peace, clarity, and time. Because if you can master those, the money becomes a tool, not a chain. The success becomes joyful, not heavy, and the life you build doesn't need escaping from. It's the one you wake up grateful for every single day. Everyone wants the freedom wealthy people have, but almost no one is willing to build the discipline their freedom is built on. I once knew a woman who never looked rich, but somehow had more freedom than anyone I'd ever met. She could travel whenever she wanted, sleep in if she needed, say no to anything that felt forced, and still she earned more than most of the people I saw running themselves into the ground. When I asked how she managed it, her answer was quiet but firm. Discipline. I built a life that doesn't need escaping. That line hit me harder than any book, any course, any seminar, because it told me the truth we often ignore. Happiness doesn't just come from having money, it comes from how you earned it and who you became in the process. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you have to fall in love with structure. Not the rigid kind that boxes you in, but the intentional kind that gives you room to breathe, create, and grow. That woman told me she woke up every morning before the world asked anything of her, sat with her thoughts, planned her priorities, and acted on the things that moved her closer to peace, not just profit. She didn't let the world drag her into chaos. She led her day. And because of that, her money felt like a reward, not a ransom. It came from focus, not frenzy. Her energy was spent on her zone of genius, not chasing what everyone else was doing. Wealth without direction will bury you in distraction. You'll say yes to every opportunity, chase every trend, and run in circles chasing your tail. But if you build boundaries, if you protect your energy, if you work smarter, not just harder, you begin to see the game differently. You're not playing to impress anymore. You're playing to enjoy. You're not competing, you're creating, and that mindset attracts more than stress ever could. Too many people want the results of the disciplined why without living the lifestyle that creates them. But peace isn't found in endless hustle. It's born in consistent effort. Discipline doesn't mean you work all the time. It means you know when to stop. It means you understand that rest is part of the process, that saying no is a skill, and that you don't owe everyone your availability. The woman I met taught me that freedom wasn't about quitting work. It was about choosing the right kind of work in the right way for the right reasons. She didn't check her phone first thing in the morning. She didn't chase dopamine all day on screens. She wasn't addicted to urgency. Her wealth was built in calm, in deep work, in aligned action. She spent time with her family at lunch, meditated in the evening, and read books that fed her mind instead of scrolling away her energy. And guess what? She didn't burn out. She didn't crash. She didn't fall into that toxic loop of feeling behind all the time. She created a rhythm that nourished her, and from that rhythm came joy, income, confidence, and space to dream even bigger. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you must learn how to protect your time like it's gold, because it is. You can always earn more money. You can't earn more years. You need to structure your life like someone who understands the value of attention. Where it goes, your results follow. Waste your time, and your life slips into survival mode. Master your time, and your life rises into creation mode. That's where freedom lives, not in escape, but in intentional, deliberate ownership of your hours. There will be seasons where you have to grind harder. There will be moments when pressure rises. But the secret is not staying there forever. Build the systems, build the leverage, build the habits that allow you to eventually step back and let your work for you. That's where wealth meets happiness, when you've built something sustainable. When you no longer have to trade hours for every dollar. When you've built streams instead of buckets, and when your daily routine makes you proud, not just rich. You can have money in your hands and still feel poor in your heart if you haven't done the internal work. I remember meeting a man in his mid-50s who had everything that screamed success: cars, property, a business empire that stretched across countries. But when I sat with him, I noticed something that money couldn't hide: emptiness. He had built an empire, but lost himself inside it. His days were packed, his phone never stopped ringing, and despite his wealth, he confessed he felt like a prisoner in his own life. I asked what he would do differently if he could start over. He stared at the ground for a long moment and whispered, "I would slow down sooner. I would heal what money couldn't fix." That conversation taught me something powerful. Internal poverty can survive even in a mansion. You can fill your world with things and still feel hollow. Because if you want to be truly wealthy and happy, you can't just build businesses. You have to build wholeness. You have to understand what drives you. You have to confront your wounds. You have to be honest about what's really motivating your grind. Is it freedom or fear of failure? Is it vision or unhealed insecurity? Are you building from inspiration or from a need to prove something? Most people chase money to fill a gap they haven't named. And that's why when the money finally comes, they still feel restless. That's why they buy more, spend more, run faster, because they're trying to silence a wound with noise. But no amount of external success can heal internal confusion. Wealth without self-awareness is just a louder form of anxiety. The real win is not just stacking cash. The real win is peace when you sit with yourself. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on your bank balance. The kind of peace that can sit in silence and feel full. Doing the inner work is uncomfortable. It forces you to slow down, to ask hard questions, to let go of identities you built for validation. But it's also where everything changes, because when you begin to understand who you are without the titles, without the trophies, you begin to live from alignment, not performance. You stop chasing approval. You stop comparing timelines. You stop needing everyone to clap. And ironically, that's when your power rises. That's when your confidence becomes quiet. That's when your presence becomes felt. I once asked a very grounded, successful artist what made him happy. He didn't talk about awards. He didn't mention money. He said, "I wake up every day proud of the person I'm becoming, not just the results I'm producing." That line stuck with me, because that's the measure we all ignore. We ask, how much am I making? Instead of, who am I becoming? But that question, who you're becoming, is the one that determines whether wealth brings joy or just noise. If you want to be wealthy and happy, don't just focus on your outer world. Heal your inner world. Get clear on what matters. Reconnect with your values. Learn how to rest without guilt. Learn how to say no without apology. Learn how to celebrate without needing validation. The strongest people I know aren't loud, they're rooted. They move with a calm that doesn't demand attention. They've done the hard work inside, so life outside flows with more ease. And from that space, they attract abundance that doesn't burn them out. Don't fall for the illusion that you need to become someone else to succeed. You need to become more of who you truly are. Because real wealth is when your outside world and your inner world are not at war. It's when your peace matches your paycheck, when your success supports your soul, not steals from it. And that harmony, that's the highest form of happiness money can never buy, but alignment can create. The highest form of wealth is the ability to live your life fully, on your terms, without apology. There's a quiet kind of wealth no one sees. It's not in headlines or headlines. It lives in early mornings when you're not rushing, in nights when you're not worried, in decisions that don't come from fear, in a body that's healthy, a mind that's clear, a home that feels like a refuge, not a place to crash between chaos. I met a man once who said, "I don't need to prove anything anymore." That's real wealth to me. He lived simply but with choice. He could walk away from any deal that felt off. He could take a month off without panic. His wealth wasn't just in digits, it was in dignity. If you want to be wealthy and happy, you have to stop measuring success by comparison. Your journey is your own. What brings someone else joy might drain your soul. What looks impressive from the outside might feel empty inside. That's why your compass has to be internal. Ask yourself often, what does success feel like, not just look like? Because it's easy to get caught in performance. It's easy to chase a lifestyle that wins on Instagram but fails in reality. True wealth isn't performative, it's personal. Freedom isn't the absence of effort, it's the ability to choose your effort. It's being able to say no to the wrong clients, the wrong projects, the wrong patterns. It's waking up without resentment. It's building a routine that serves your soul, not one that exhausts it. It's walking into your own home and not needing a vacation from your life. That kind of freedom is rare, but it's possible. And it's built one choice at a time, one new habit, one boundary honored, one honest conversation, one risk taken when comfort begged you to stay small. I once watched a father who worked hard but never missed his daughter's soccer games. He said no to promotions that required 80-hour weeks, PE. Opal told him he was throwing away success, but years later his daughter spoke at his retirement party and said, "My dad was always there. That's how I know I mattered." That moment was worth more than every bonus he passed up, because real wealth includes your relationships. Real wealth remembers what truly matters when the numbers fade. You don't just want a rich bank, you want a rich life. Being wealthy and happy means redefining what winning means. It's not always the loudest, the biggest, or the fastest. Sometimes it's slow and intentional. Sometimes it's silent and sacred. Sometimes it's turning off your phone, taking a walk in nature, and realizing you already have more than you thought. Gratitude isn't just spiritual, it's strategic, because when you see clearly, you make clearer moves. You stop chasing everything and start choosing what aligns, and that's where joy meets prosperity, not as opposites, but as partners. Wealth without presence is wasted, and happiness without direction drifts. But when you combine the two, when your life becomes a reflection of your values, your vision, your peace, you create something few people ever taste: fulfillment. You get to the end of your day, your week, your year, and you feel proud. Not because you did more, but because you did what mattered. And that's the real measure. Not how loud your life is, but how true. If you want to be wealthy and happy, protect your energy like it's sacred. Build your routines like a craftsman, not a robot. Stay close to your purpose. Walk away from anything that asks you to betray yourself. Remember that your success should feel like freedom, not a trap. Let your joy be part of the plan, not a side effect. And above all, don't just build a life you can show off. Build a life you can live in. In the end, the richest people I've ever met weren't the ones who earned the most. They were the ones who knew what enough looked like, who lived with depth, who loved without walls, who built without noise, who laughed easily and slept peacefully. That's the kind of wealth you can't fake. That's the kind of happiness you can't buy. And that's the kind of life, if you're willing to choose it, can be yours too.